Captain Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the UES horizon, staring at the impossible message that flickered across his main screen. After 3 days of silence from the alien signal they had detected near Jupiter, the response had finally come. But it was not what anyone had expected. The voice that spoke through their speakers was smooth and measured, with perfect English pronunciation that made Jake's skin crawl. No alien species should speak their language so well after just discovering them 3 days ago. Greetings, inhabitants of the third planet. I am High Coordinator Veltash of the Zephyrian Collective. We have been observing your species with great interest. Your recent expansion beyond your homeworld shows promise, though your methods remain quite basic. Jake looked across the bridge at his crew. Dr. Lisa Baker, their xenobiologist, was recording everything while taking notes at a speed that made her pen blur across the paper. Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez had stopped his usual tinkering with console displays and was listening with his mouth slightly open. Communications Officer Amy Chen was running diagnostics on their receivers, trying to figure out how the aliens had managed to hack into their supposedly secure channels. The alien voice continued without waiting for a response. We wish to extend an invitation for cultural exchange. Your species shows potential for growth, and we believe we can offer guidance that will benefit your people greatly. We have prepared a meeting space aboard our orbital station near your gas giant. A small delegation of your people would be most welcome. The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in complete silence for nearly 30 seconds. Jake had been preparing for first contact scenarios for over a decade, but nothing had prepared him for aliens who spoke down to them like teachers addressing kindergarten children. Captain, Amy Chen spoke first, her voice tight with concern. I need to report something. The signal did not come through normal space communication channels. They accessed our internal communication system directly. They bypassed every security protocol we have. Tony Rodriguez turned from his station, his face pale. That should be impossible. Our comm systems are not connected to external receivers. They would need to know our exact frequencies, our encryption methods, and our hardware specifications. Dr. Baker looked up from her notes. There's more. Did anyone else notice how perfectly he pronounced every word? Not just the language, but the accent, the rhythm, even the slight pause patterns that native English speakers use. He sounded more American than most Americans. Jake felt a cold weight settling in his stomach. How long would it take to learn a language that well? Years, Baker replied. Maybe decades if you wanted to sound that natural, and that's assuming you had constant exposure to native speakers and cultural context. Amy Chen's console beeped with an incoming data packet. She scanned the information quickly, then looked up with wide eyes. Captain, they just sent us detailed specifications for their meeting station. The file includes complete technical blueprints, atmospheric composition, gravity settings, and docking procedures. This information package is larger than our entire technical database. Jake walked over to look at Amy's screen. The blueprints showed a structure that was beautiful beyond anything humans had ever built. Curved corridors flowed like water, with walls that seemed to pulse with soft light. Technology was integrated so smoothly into the architecture that it was hard to tell where the building ended and the machines began. This is incredible, Tony whispered, reading over Jake's shoulder. Look at these power distribution systems. They're running energy through materials that shouldn't be able to carry current. And these gravity generators are smaller than our coffee makers, but they're creating fields strong enough to simulate Earth normal throughout a structure that size. Dr. Baker joined them at the console. The atmospheric controls are fascinating, too. They can apparently adjust air composition, temperature, and humidity in individual rooms instantly. They're offering to set up perfect Earth conditions for our visit. Too perfect, Jake muttered. They know exactly what we need to survive. They know our language better than we do, and they can hack our systems like they built them. How long have they been watching us? Amy Chen was scanning through more of the data packet when she stopped suddenly. Captain, I found something. Buried deep in the technical specifications, there are reference files, system compatibility charts, that include detailed information about human technology standards, manufacturing processes, and even our military communication protocols. Jake felt his blood turn cold. Our military protocols are classified at the highest levels. Even most of our own people don't have access to that information. It gets worse, Amy continued, her voice barely above a whisper. The timestamp on these files shows they were compiled over 18 months ago. They've been collecting information about us for at least that long. Probably longer. Tony Rodriguez was studying the power system blueprints more carefully. Captain, I think I see something else. These systems they're showing us, they're impressive, but they're not magic. The underlying mathematics look familiar. Advanced, yes, but still based on principles we understand. It's like they took our basic engineering concepts and developed them a few hundred years further. Dr. Baker was reading through the cultural exchange proposal. They're offering to share technology with us: water purification systems, medical scanners, agricultural enhancement tools. They describe these as basic tools suitable for developing species. They're talking about us like we're children learning to use scissors for the first time. Jake returned to his captain's chair and stared at the main screen, which now displayed the beautiful, intimidating image of the alien station. Everything about this first contact felt wrong. The aliens were too prepared, too condescending, and too knowledgeable about human capabilities and weaknesses. Amy, send a response, Jake decided. Tell them we accept their invitation and we'll send a small diplomatic team, but keep it simple. Don't give them any information they don't already seem to have. What's our real plan, Captain? Tony asked quietly. Jake looked around at his crew, seeing the same suspicion and determination in their eyes that he felt building in his chest. Our real plan is to figure out what these aliens actually want from us and why they feel the need to lie about how long they've been watching us. Because if they're this good at pretending to be helpful, I want to know what they're really after. Dr. Baker closed her notebook and looked up. When do we leave for the station? Tomorrow, Jake replied. And we go in with our eyes open and our minds sharp. Something tells me this cultural exchange is going to be more educational than they planned. The Zephyrian station was nothing like anything the humans had ever seen before. As Captain Jake Martinez stepped through the airlock, he felt like he was walking into a living organism rather than a building. The walls curved smoothly around them, glowing with a soft blue light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with some unseen heartbeat. There were no visible joints, no bolts or welds, just one continuous surface that flowed like frozen water. High Coordinator Veltash waited for them, in what appeared to be a reception area. He was tall and thin, with pale gray skin and large dark eyes that reflected too much light. His movements were graceful in a way that made humans look clumsy by comparison. When he smiled, his expression seemed genuine, but there was something in his eyes that reminded Jake of a scientist looking at lab rats. Welcome to Station Nexus, Veltash said, his perfect English sounding even more unnatural in person. I trust your journey was comfortable. We have prepared accommodations that should meet all your basic needs. Dr. Lisa Baker stepped forward, trying to hide her amazement at the alien architecture. This station is incredible. How do you achieve this kind of structural integration without visible support systems? A simple matter of molecular engineering, Veltash replied with what sounded like barely contained amusement. Your species will understand such concepts in time. For now, let me show you some of the basic technologies we thought might interest you. As they walked through the corridors, another Zephyrian joined them. Veltash introduced him as Sub-Commander Nexriel, who would be assisting with the technical demonstrations. Nexriel was shorter than his superior but carried himself with the same sense of casual superiority. They entered a large chamber filled with devices that hummed quietly with power. Tony Rodriguez immediately moved toward what looked like a water purification system, his engineer instincts taking over despite his growing unease about their hosts. This device can purify any liquid substance, Nexriel explained, activating the machine with a simple hand gesture. It removes all contaminants at the molecular level and can even add beneficial minerals as needed. Very useful for species still struggling with basic resource management. Tony studied the machine carefully. The technology was impressive, but the way Nexriel spoke about it made him feel like a child being shown how to tie his shoes. What kind of power source does it use? Quantum energy extraction, Veltash answered smoothly. Though I fear the concept might be beyond your current scientific understanding. Your people still rely on burning chemical compounds for energy, do they not? Amy Chen had been quietly observing their surroundings while the others focused on the technology. She noticed that despite the organic appearance of the station, there were subtle patterns in the walls that looked almost like circuit pathways. Information was flowing through the structure itself, and she was beginning to suspect that everything they said and did was being recorded and analyzed. Your civilization is quite remarkable, Dr. Baker said diplomatically. How long have your people been spacefaring? Oh, many thousands of your years, Veltash replied. We have had the privilege of guiding 17 other species along the path of development. Each one started much as yours has, with primitive technology and limited understanding of the universe around them. What happened to those other species? Jake asked, though something in Veltash's tone made him wish he had not asked the question. They became valued members of our collective, Nexriel said, bringing up a holographic display that showed images of various alien species. The Korthan provide us with excellent deep space construction work. The Villani have wonderful artistic talents that enrich our culture. The Nexari are superb at biological research. Each species contributes according to their natural abilities. The holographic images showed the alien species, but something about them bothered Dr. Baker. They all looked somehow diminished, as if they were copies of what they had once been, rather than thriving independent civilizations. Do these species still govern themselves? She asked carefully. Government is such a primitive concept, Veltash said with that same condescending smile. Why would they need to govern themselves when they can be part of something greater? The collective provides for all their needs. They are much happier now than they were when they were struggling with the chaos of independent decision-making. Tony had moved on to examine what appeared to be a medical scanning device. The technology was undeniably advanced, but as he studied it more closely, he began to notice something interesting. The basic principles underlying the device were not completely foreign. They were advanced applications of physics concepts that humans already understood, just taken much further than human technology had reached. This scanner can diagnose any medical condition instantly, Nexriel explained, demonstrating the device on his own arm. It can even predict potential health problems years before they develop. Very useful for managing the health of large populations efficiently. The word managing sent a chill down Jake's spine. These aliens did not talk about helping other species. They talked about managing them, organizing them, and fitting them into useful roles within their collective. Amy Chen had been working on her handheld recorder, trying to capture as much information as possible about the station's systems. What she discovered made her stomach turn cold. The aliens were not just showing them technology, they were scanning the humans constantly, recording their biological responses, their technological interactions, even their emotional reactions to different situations. During a brief moment when their hosts were adjusting one of the demonstration devices, Amy whispered urgently to the others. They're studying us, everything we do, everything we say, everything we touch. They're building a complete profile of human capabilities and limitations. Dr. Baker had been listening carefully to the aliens' conversations when they thought the humans were not paying attention. Her linguistic analysis skills were picking up patterns in their speech that revealed more than they intended. When Veltash and Nexriel spoke quietly to each other in their own language, they were not discussing technical details of their demonstrations. They were debating whether humans were intelligent enough to be worth integrating into their collective, or whether they should be classified as a resource species suitable only for basic labor tasks. The cranial capacity is limited, she heard Nexriel say in his own language, clearly unaware that she was beginning to understand their speech patterns. Their problem-solving approaches are chaotic and inefficient. Perhaps they would be better suited for simple manufacturing tasks like the Dulari. Patience, Veltash replied in Zephyrian. We must complete our evaluation first. Though I admit their technology is remarkably primitive, their computing systems still use binary processing. How quaint. The formal tour continued for several more hours, with the Zephyrians showing off increasingly advanced technologies, While making increasingly condescending comments about human limitations, they demonstrated quantum computing networks that could process information across multiple dimensions, energy systems that could power entire planets, and transportation technology that could move objects instantly across vast distances. But, with each demonstration, Jake and his team became more convinced that they were not witnessing a cultural exchange. They were being evaluated like livestock at a market, with their host deciding what use they might serve in an alien empire that had already consumed 17 other civilizations. As the day ended and the humans were shown to their guest quarters, Jake gathered his team for a private discussion. The rooms were luxurious beyond anything they had experienced, but they all felt like gilded cages. "We need to assume everything we say and do is being monitored," Jake said quietly. "But I think we all understand what's really happening here." Tony nodded grimly. "These aliens are not here to help us. They're here to decide how to use us." Dr. Baker looked pale, but determined. "The other species they mentioned, the ones that became part of their collective, I do not think they joined voluntarily. I think they were absorbed and their original cultures were erased." Amy Chen was still working with her recording equipment, trying to understand more about the station's systems. "Captain, I think I might have found something. Their technology is advanced, but it is not magic. There might be weaknesses we can exploit." Jake looked around at his team, seeing the same determination he felt building in his own chest. Tomorrow, they would smile and nod and continue playing the role of primitive humans eager to learn from their superior alien teachers. But tonight, they would begin planning how to fight back. The human quarters fell silent as the station entered what the Zephyrians called their rest cycle. Captain Jake Martinez waited 15 minutes after the last alien had passed through the corridors before gathering his team in the center room. They spoke in whispers, knowing that their hosts were likely monitoring everything. "We have maybe 6 hours before they complete whatever evaluation process they're running," Jake said quietly. "Amy, what did you find about their monitoring systems?" Amy Chen pulled out her modified recorder, which she had been disguising as a simple audio device. "The good news is that their surveillance focuses on obvious threats. They're watching for weapons, explosives, anything that looks like traditional military technology. The bad news is that they're recording everything else too, but they seem to process it through automated systems rather than having live observers." Dr. Lisa Baker had spent the evening reviewing her linguistic notes. "I've been analyzing their speech patterns when they think we can't understand. They're planning to make their final decision about humanity within the next day cycle. From what I can gather, we're being classified somewhere between the Dulari, who they use for manufacturing, and the Korthan, who do construction work." Tony Rodriguez had been sketching diagrams of the alien technology they had observed. "Here's what I don't understand. Their systems are advanced, but they follow logical principles. Everything we saw today operates on enhanced versions of physics concepts we already know. Their quantum computers are impressive, but they're still just very fast processing units. Their energy systems are efficient, but they still follow conservation laws." Jake studied Tony's sketches. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that maybe these aliens are not as different from us as they want us to believe. They've had more time to develop their technology, but the fundamental approaches are similar to ours, which means their systems might have similar vulnerabilities." Amy Chen leaned forward. "I've been monitoring their network traffic during the demonstrations. Their security protocols are designed to prevent attacks from other advanced civilizations using similar technology, but they're not prepared for attacks from species they consider primitive." Dr. Baker looked up from her notes. "There's something else. I've been listening to how they talk about problem solving. Everything they do follows strict logical patterns. They approach challenges in very orderly, predictable ways. It's efficient, but it also means they think in straight lines. While humans think in chaos," Tony added, beginning to understand where this was leading. Jake felt a spark of hope igniting in his chest. "Explain that." Tony put down his sketches and looked at his teammates. "Human engineering is messy. We use trial and error. We make intuitive leaps. We solve problems by trying random solutions until something works. It drives our own computers crazy sometimes, but it also lets us find solutions that pure logic might miss." Amy Chen was nodding enthusiastically. "That's exactly what I've been thinking. Their network security assumes that any attacker will follow logical attack patterns, probe for weaknesses systematically, test defenses in order, follow standard infiltration protocols. But what if we don't follow standard protocols? Dr. Baker asked. Then we might slip through their defenses, like water through a net, Jake concluded. They're watching for sophisticated attacks, not for someone who appears to be randomly poking at their systems. The team spent the next 2 hours developing their plan. Amy Chen would create what appeared to be a simple diagnostic routine, the kind of basic system check that any primitive species might run while trying to understand alien technology. But buried within that routine would be Tony's chaos algorithm, a program that would behave in ways no logical security system would expect. Tony's virus would not attack the Zephyrian systems directly. Instead, it would explore randomly, copying information whenever it found something interesting, and most importantly, sharing everything it discovered with the human team's hidden recording devices. Dr. Baker would continue her linguistic work, but now she would focus on understanding the aliens' internal communications. If they could intercept messages between different parts of the station, they might learn about Zephyrian plans beyond just the evaluation of humanity. Jake would play the role of curious but harmless captain, asking simple questions that would encourage their hosts to reveal more about their technology and their empire. The key is timing, Amy explained as she worked on her diagnostic program. The Zephyrians have a collective meditation period every day cycle. During that time, their attention turns inward, and their monitoring of external activities becomes automated rather than active. That's when we make our move. Tony had been studying the power flow patterns he had observed in the station walls. I think I understand how their network is structured. It's not like our internet, which is a separate system overlaid on physical infrastructure. Their entire station is the network. Information flows through the walls themselves, which means if we can access any part of their system, we can potentially reach any other part. Jake realized. Dr. Baker had been working on understanding the aliens' daily routine. The meditation period starts in about 4 hours and lasts for approximately 90 minutes. During that time, the station operates on automated systems, but the Zephyrians themselves are essentially unconscious. Amy Chen finished the basic framework of her diagnostic program. I need to test this on something first, to make sure it won't trigger their security systems immediately. Captain, when you interact with their demonstration equipment tomorrow, can you give me access to one of their simpler devices? What kind of access do you need? Just touch the interface panel with this. Amy handed him a small device that looked like a simple data storage unit. It will appear to be a routine compatibility check, but it will actually install my diagnostic program into their network. Tony looked over Amy's code, checking for anything that might appear suspicious to alien security systems. This is brilliant. It looks like exactly the kind of clumsy, inefficient program that a primitive species would write while trying to understand advanced technology. Any logical security system would dismiss it as harmless. Jake examined the device Amy had given him. And once this is installed, then we wait for meditation period and activate the chaos algorithm. If we're right about their security assumptions, the virus will be able to explore their entire network while appearing to be nothing more than random system noise. Dr. Baker closed her linguistic notes and looked at her teammates. What if we're wrong? What if their security systems are more sophisticated than we think? Then we'll be classified as a resource species and spend the rest of our lives doing manual labor for an alien empire, Jake replied grimly. But if we're right, we might discover something that can help not just humanity, but all the other species they've absorbed. Amy Chen made final adjustments to her program. There's one more thing. If we do manage to access their central systems, we need to be prepared for what we might find. Information about 17 conquered civilizations, detailed plans for absorbing humanity, maybe even communications with other parts of their empire. Tony nodded solemnly. Whatever we find, we document everything. Even if we don't make it back to Earth, maybe someone else will eventually discover what happened here. Jake looked around at his small team, feeling a mixture of pride and terror at what they were planning. Tomorrow we smile and nod and let them think we're primitive. Humans who are impressed by their superior technology, but tomorrow night we show them what human ingenuity can accomplish when we stop playing by their rules. Dr. Baker gathered her materials and prepared to return to her quarters. Captain, what if this works too well? What if we discover something that makes the Zephyrians realize we're more dangerous than they thought? Jake considered the question carefully. Then we make sure we're ready for whatever comes next. Because one way or another, tomorrow night we're going to find out what these aliens are really planning for humanity. As the team separated to return to their individual quarters, each of them carried the weight of what they were about to attempt. In less than 24 hours, they would either be dead, enslaved, or in possession of information that could change the course of human history. The station hummed quietly around them, its alien systems processing data and maintaining the perfect environment their hosts had created. But hidden within that hum, human determination was preparing to strike back in ways the Zephyrians could never anticipate. The morning demonstration went exactly as planned. High Coordinator Veltash proudly showed Captain Jake Martinez and his team through another series of advanced Zephyrian technologies, explaining each device with the same condescending patience he might use with small children learning to count. This atmospheric processor can transform the air composition of an entire planet, Veltash said, gesturing to a machine that hummed with quiet power. Very useful for species that have damaged their home environments through primitive industrial practices. Jake nodded with what he hoped looked like appropriate amazement while secretly activating Amy Chen's device against the machine's interface panel. The small unit attached itself to the alien technology with a barely audible click, then immediately began running what appeared to be a simple compatibility diagnostic. Fascinating, Jake said, keeping his voice steady while the device uploaded Amy's program into the Zephyrian network. How long does the terraforming process typically take? For a world as damaged as yours? Perhaps 50 of your years, Subcommander Nexreal replied. Of course, the existing population would need to be relocated during the process. We have facilities where they can be housed safely while their world is being repaired. Dr. Lisa Baker felt her blood turn cold at the casual way Nexreal discussed relocating entire populations, but she maintained her composed expression. These facilities, are they similar to the ones used for the other species in your collective? Quite similar, Veltash confirmed. Each species has different needs, of course. Some require specialized environments during their transition period, but we have found that most populations adapt quite well to communal living arrangements once they understand the benefits. Tony Rodriguez was studying the atmospheric processor with genuine engineering interest, even as he watched Jake's device complete its upload. The machine was impressive, but like everything else they had seen, it operated on principles that humans could understand if they had enough time to study it. Amy Chen continued recording everything while running silent scans of the station's network traffic. Her hidden programs were already detecting the results of the morning's upload. The diagnostic routine was spreading through the Zephyrian systems exactly as planned, appearing to be nothing more than a basic compatibility check that was taking longer than expected. The tour continued for several more hours. The aliens showed them food synthesis technology, medical equipment that could repair almost any injury, and transportation systems that could move people across vast distances instantly. Each demonstration reinforced the same message. The Zephyrians possessed technology so advanced that humans could never hope to develop anything similar on their own. But each demonstration also gave the humans more data about how Zephyrian systems operated. Tony was building a mental map of the station's infrastructure, while Amy tracked the flow of information through the alien network. Dr. Baker continued her linguistic analysis, understanding more of the aliens' private conversations with each passing hour. As the day progressed, the aliens became increasingly open about their plans for humanity. They discussed resource extraction protocols, population management systems, and the specific roles they envisioned for humans within their collective. It became clear that they had already made their decision about Earth's future. Your species shows promise in certain areas, Veltash explained as they concluded the day's demonstrations. Human creativity, while chaotic, can be channeled toward useful purposes. We believe your people would excel at problem-solving tasks that require unconventional approaches. Jake felt a bitter irony in the alien's words, knowing that human unconventional approaches were about to be used in ways Veltash could never imagine. Evening came, and the humans returned to their quarters. They waited through the dinner period and the social interaction time, maintaining casual conversation while internally counting down the minutes until the Zephyrian meditation cycle would begin. At exactly the predetermined time, the station's lighting shifted to a softer tone, and the background hum of activity faded to almost nothing. Throughout the station, the Zephyrians settled into their collective meditation, their consciousness turning inward, while automated systems took over most station functions. Amy Chen activated her hidden equipment and immediately began monitoring network traffic. The change was dramatic. Active monitoring systems switched to passive mode, security protocols shifted to automatic routines, and most importantly, the flow of information through the station's network increased dramatically as automated systems began their maintenance cycles. "Now," she whispered. Tony Rodriguez activated the chaos algorithm that had been waiting dormant in the diagnostic program. Instead of attacking the Zephyrian systems directly, the virus began behaving like a curious child exploring a new playground. It followed data pathways randomly, copied interesting information whenever it found something unusual, and most importantly, shared everything it discovered with the human recording devices. The results were immediate and shocking. The virus found its way into personnel files, discovering detailed psychological profiles of every Zephyrian on the station. It accessed historical databases, revealing the true story of the 17 species that had been absorbed into the collective. It even found communication logs showing contact with other Zephyrian stations throughout the galaxy. Dr. Baker watched in amazement as her translation programs began processing alien text files that the virus was copying. "Jake, you need to see this. The species they claim joined willingly. They were all conquered through exactly the same process we're experiencing now. The Zephyrians identify a species, study them for years, then approach them with offers of technological assistance." Amy Chen was tracking the virus's progress through increasingly sensitive parts of the alien network. "It's working perfectly. Their security systems are designed to detect logical attack patterns, but the chaos algorithm is behaving so randomly that the automated defenses are classifying it as normal system noise." Tony Rodriguez was analyzing the technical specifications the virus was discovering. "Look at this. Complete blueprints for their quantum communication network. Details about their faster-than-light travel systems. Even manufacturing specifications for their most advanced weapons. But the most disturbing discovery came when the virus accessed the collective's central planning database." Jake stared at the translated documents with growing horror as he realized the scope of the Zephyrian operation. "They're not just planning to absorb humanity," he said quietly. "They've identified 43 other species in this part of the galaxy. We're just one item on a very long list." The virus continued its exploration, finding communication channels between the station and the collective's home worlds. Dr. Baker's translation programs revealed that the Zephyrians were part of a vast empire that had been systematically conquering species for thousands of years. Earth was being evaluated by one of dozens of similar teams operating throughout the galaxy. Amy Chen discovered something even more significant. "Captain, the virus has found resistance communication networks. Some of the absorbed species maintained hidden enclaves that still resist collective control. They've been trying to coordinate uprisings, but they lack information about collective security protocols and strategic plans." Tony Rodriguez looked up from the technical data he was analyzing. "We could change that. Everything the virus is copying, we can transmit to these resistance groups. Give them the intelligence they need to fight back effectively." Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. The information they were gathering could potentially liberate not just humanity, but dozens of other species that had been enslaved by the collective. But using that information would also reveal that humans were far more capable than the Zephyrians believed. Dr. Baker was reading through communication logs between Zephyrian commanders. "There's more. The collective is planning a major expansion in this sector of the galaxy. They've identified what they call high-value targets, species with particularly useful capabilities that they want to acquire quickly. Let me guess, Jake said grimly. Humanity is on that list. Near the top, Baker confirmed. They're impressed by human adaptability and problem-solving abilities. They want to capture as many humans as possible before we develop space travel. Capabilities that might let us escape or fight back effectively. The virus reached the station's central archives and began copying everything. Detailed records of conquered civilizations, strategic plans for future expansion, and most importantly, complete listings of collective military assets and their locations throughout the galaxy. Chen realized that they now possessed intelligence that could potentially cripple the entire Zephyrian Empire if it reached the right hands. But she also knew that the meditation period was nearly over, and soon the aliens would return to active monitoring of their systems. We need to decide quickly, she whispered urgently. Do we try to transmit this information to the resistance networks now, or do we wait and hope we get another chance? Jake looked around at his team, seeing the same determination in their eyes that he felt building in his chest. They had set out to learn about their captors, but they had discovered something far more significant. They had found the key to Liberati High. Coordinator Veltash entered the meeting chamber with the confident stride of someone who believed he held all the power. Sub-Commander Nexriel followed close behind, carrying what appeared to be formal documentation. Both aliens wore expressions of barely contained satisfaction, as they prepared to deliver what they clearly expected to be humanity's surrender terms. Captain Jake Martinez and his team were already seated at the curved table, their faces showing the appropriate mixture of nervousness and hope that primitive species typically displayed when meeting with their technological superiors. Veltash had conducted 17 of these final meetings over the centuries, and they all followed the same predictable pattern. Captain Martinez, Veltash began, his voice carrying the smooth authority of absolute certainty. After careful evaluation, the collective has reached a decision regarding humanity's future. We are prepared to offer your species a place within our great civilization. Jake nodded politely, playing his role perfectly. We are honored by your consideration, High Coordinator. What would this partnership involve? Nexriel stepped forward and activated a holographic display showing Earth and several other worlds. Your people would be relocated to facilities better suited to their development needs. Earth itself would undergo atmospheric restoration, which unfortunately requires the temporary removal of the existing population. Temporary? Dr. Lisa Baker asked, though she already knew the answer. The restoration process takes approximately 50 Earth years, Veltash replied smoothly. During that time, your people would contribute to collective projects suited to human capabilities. We have identified several roles where human creativity and problem-solving abilities would be most valuable. Tony Rodriguez leaned forward with apparent interest. What kind of projects? Resource extraction operations that require unconventional approaches, Nexriel explained. Infrastructure development in challenging environments. Research tasks that benefit from chaotic thinking patterns. Each human would be assigned to work that matches their individual capabilities. Amy Chen maintained her expression of polite attention, while internally marveling at how the aliens could make slavery sound like a career counseling program. And our families? Our communities? The collective provides housing and social structures optimized for each species, Veltash assured her. You would find the arrangements quite comfortable once you adapt to communal living standards. Jake looked around the table at his teammates, then back at the aliens. This is certainly a generous offer. Before we respond, however, there are a few things we would like to discuss. Of course, Veltash said indulgently. We understand that primitive species often have concerns about joining more advanced civilizations. Jake smiled and activated his own recording device. Actually, our concerns are somewhat different than you might expect. The holographic display that materialized above the table was not what the Zephyrians had anticipated. Instead of human questions about their proposed arrangements, they found themselves looking at detailed organizational charts of the collective's military structure, complete with fleet positions, command hierarchies, and strategic resource allocations. Beltash's confident expression faltered. What is this? This is the current deployment status of the Collective's 7th Fleet, Jake replied calmly, along with communication protocols, supply line information, and a complete list of conquered worlds in this sector. Quite impressive, actually. We had no idea your empire was so extensive. Nexreal stepped closer to the display, his dark eyes reflecting growing alarm. How did you obtain classified military intelligence? Dr. Baker activated her own recording device, adding linguistic analysis charts to the holographic display. We've also been analyzing your private conversations over the past few days. Did you know that when you speak Zephyrian, you use very specific grammatical structures that indicate hierarchical relationships? It made translating your internal communications much easier once we identified the patterns. Amy Chen joined the presentation, displaying network architecture diagrams. Your quantum communication systems are fascinating. The underlying mathematics are actually quite elegant, though we noticed some interesting vulnerabilities in your security protocols. Tony Rodriguez added technical specifications to the growing display. Your technology is impressive, but it follows predictable logical patterns, very efficient, but also very vulnerable to approaches that don't follow standard attack methodologies. Beltash stared at the wealth of classified information floating above the table. This is impossible. Our systems are completely secure. No primitive species could penetrate collective databases. You're absolutely right, Jake agreed. No primitive species following conventional attack patterns could breach your security. But humans don't always follow conventional patterns. We tend to approach problems from unexpected angles. The holographic display shifted to show communication logs between resistance groups throughout the galaxy. Amy Chen smiled as she explained the next phase of their revelation. We've also been in contact with some of your former subjects, the Korthan construction workers, the Villani artists, the Nexari researchers. Interesting people. They've been waiting a long time for detailed intelligence about collective operations. Nexreal's voice rose in pitch as he began to understand the implications. You transmitted classified information to resistance groups? We shared everything, Tony Rodriguez confirmed cheerfully. Fleet positions, security protocols, communication frequencies, supply depot locations, personnel files, strategic plans. Everything your automated systems so helpfully provided during your meditation periods. Dr. Baker was monitoring communication channels in real time. The response has been quite encouraging. The Dulari manufacturing facilities have apparently shut down production. The Nexari research stations have gone dark, and the Korthan construction teams have stopped working on your new military installations. Beltash finally found his voice, though it carried none of its earlier confidence. You cannot possibly understand the consequences of what you have done. The Collective maintains order throughout this entire sector of the galaxy. The Collective maintains control through information advantage and technological superiority, Jake corrected. But when your subjects have detailed intelligence about your capabilities and limitations, that advantage disappears quite rapidly. Amy. Chen was receiving real-time updates from resistance networks. Current status reports indicate coordinated actions on 37 worlds. Your supply lines are being disrupted, your communication networks are being jammed, and your military installations are experiencing what the reports describe as technical difficulties. The aliens stood in stunned silence as the scope of their situation became clear. Their empire was not collapsing from external attack, but from internal rebellion armed with perfect intelligence about collective vulnerabilities. Tony Rodriguez studied the aliens with genuine curiosity. The interesting thing is that your technology isn't actually superior to what other species could develop given time and resources. You just had a head start and used information control to maintain your advantage. Dr. Baker was still monitoring alien communications throughout the galaxy. We're receiving reports from 17 different species. Apparently none of them joined your collective voluntarily. They were all conquered through exactly the same process you attempted with humanity. Jake leaned back in his chair and looked at the two aliens who had entered the room expecting to dictate terms to a primitive species. So here's our counter-proposal. The collective can choose to transition from an empire based on conquest to a genuine cooperative alliance based on mutual respect and shared benefits. And if we refuse? Veltash asked, though his voice suggested he already knew the answer. Amy. Chen smiled as she displayed the latest status reports. Then you'll be facing coordinated resistance from dozens of species who now have complete intelligence about your operations, your weaknesses, and your military capabilities. How long do you think your empire will last under those circumstances? Nexrio looked at the data displays with growing desperation. Even if we agreed to your terms, how could we trust species that have proven capable of such deception? The same way we're choosing to trust you not to attempt revenge once you've recovered from this shock, Jake replied. Through mutual benefit and transparent cooperation instead of dominance and control. Dr. Baker was reading the latest communication updates from Liberated Worlds. The good news is that most of the former collective subjects seem more interested in rebuilding their own civilizations than in seeking revenge, though they're quite firm about maintaining their independence. Veltash sat down heavily, his entire worldview crumbling around him. We believed we were bringing order and advancement to primitive civilizations. You were bringing subjugation and cultural extinction, Tony Rodriguez said gently. But that doesn't mean cooperation is impossible. It just means it has to be genuine cooperation between equals. Jake stood up and walked a row.